In today's video, we're going to explore the best exercise to grow Tola's quads. Now, he's currently doing the heel elevated safety bar squat. So we're going to have a little bit of a couch assessment to break things down joint by joint. We're going to put things back together and explore a few variations that might change things differently. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe because we're going to be breaking down and exploring different exercises that will help you become a better coach every single video.
Said I'm taking big shots, just stop where I'm driven, no pit stops. This hot, I ain't playing like a 6 spot. Pissed off, but I told him this.
We're going to do a little bit of a couch assessment now where we're going to explore predominantly the hip, some of the knee and also the ankle as well to see what's going on joint by joint so we can break the squat down, then pull it back together again. So for you, Tola, what did you say you noticed about your squat? And I've just put you on a spot there. It looks like a rabbit in the headlights. So you're doing the safety bar squat, and we spoke a little bit earlier before we started recording about a little bit of a hip shift.
Yes, so I feel sometimes when I squat on the way up, I feel like there's a bit of a shift in the hip. So it feels like I'm coming up and I'm using one side, maybe my left side a bit more than my right.
Perfect. So normally when that happens, we'll be able to notice a little bit of a discrepancy or difference between left and right hip, sometimes rotation, sometimes flexion, and that's when the body will then start to compensate with what's going on elsewhere. So you might see a shift, a little bit of a weight variance or something else along those lines. So we're going to see if that's happening right now. We're now going to do internal and external rotation of the hip with a straight leg and then a bent leg. We're going to start with, just relax for me. I know you're new environment, lights on, everything, just relax for me. So the first thing we're going to do is look at your internal and external rotation. Now we can do this with a straight leg and a bent leg. Yeah. So I recommend doing it with both because sometimes there's going to be a difference between what we can get internally and externally with a straight leg versus what we can get when the hips flexed at 90 degrees. So do both if you're comfortable with that. Yeah. But if you had to choose one, I would say do the bent leg one first because that's going to be most relatable to the bottom of a squat. So for the straight leg one, just to give you an example, so if you give me the full weight of your leg, you won't be able to see this, but your knee is at 0 degrees, so straight up in the air. So from at this point here, your knee is straight up in the air. All I'm going to do is, I say your knee, because what I'm going to do is use your knee as a reference point. So if your knee then goes to out here, that's 90 degrees, and then it's going to be 90 degrees of away. So you'll need the reference point to tell me what degrees of internal and external rotation you're into. Yep. Okay. So when I'm moving so when I twist it that way, is that internal or external?
That is internal.
Is it internal?
Yes.
Is it?
I think, yeah.
Okay, so that's external rotation because if you look at, don't worry about what your foot or ankle is doing. I'm looking at what your thigh is doing. So that's going to be turning away from your body.
Okay, yeah.
That's going to be turning into your body. So from there, we've got 0. I'm looking there. That looks to me about 45, 50. So I'm going to pop you down right there. And then, so remember that was 0. You're now currently coming off at that angle there. So it's about 45 to 50 external.
Yeah.
And then internal, we might expect a little bit less. Quite a lot less. Do you feel anything different there?
That feels a little bit tighter.
Perfect. So that's about 15 or 20. So again, just to give you your reference, 90s here, and you're about 20. So that's how I find the reference point.
Okay.
Now, normally there will be more. I think only ever once have I ever noticed that there's a difference between external has less than internal rotation. So normally, external rotation will be a little bit more than internal rotation. That's perfectly fine. The aim of this exercise isn't to say something's more or less, it's just to compare left to right. So wherever it is fine. We're just going to notice whether there's a difference between the left leg and the right leg. That's going to be the most important thing to note. Okay, so we're going to bend your knee now.
Cool.
And then again, I want you to give me the full weight of your leg. And then I'm going to bring you to 90 degrees. Yep. Okay. Then I'm going to do, give me the full weight of your leg. Full weight. There we go, that's better. So then from there, is that internal or external?
That's external.
Is it? So again, remember, we're not going to look. Yeah. So what we can see here, the reason why you said external was, or why I'm going to assume you said external, was because we're moving that way and the foot is moving away from the body.
Yeah, that's
but we're not going to be focusing on what's going on at the foot. we're actually looking at what's going on at the femur or the thigh. So even though the foot's going away, the thigh bone is actually turning in towards. So we can see that's internal rotation. And again, reference point is straight down is 0. How far away from 0 do we move? That's going to be about 15 to 20 again. So that's in line with what we see straight leg to bent leg. So 15 to 20 internal, and I'm going to do the same. And with this as well, don't be afraid, like when you do it with your clients, so your hands on.
Yeah.
Of course, ask permission. But we don't be afraid to be a little bit more hands on and grab their leg because you want to be able to get into the position that you want. So moving on now, we're going to go into hip flexion with a bent knee and a straight knee. So with this one, we're going to be looking at hip flexion, and just to make sure it's a fair assessment that comes from the hip and nothing else, i.e. the spine, all I'm going to do is ask T to put his hands underneath the small of your back. So can you put your hands underneath the small of your back for me, please?
Right there.
And can you tell me why we're doing that? Pop
So-
quiz.
So sometimes what happens is if you do the assessment, the lower back can essentially take over just a bit. So it's almost like
Perfect, yeah, we got there. We were there, we
You
got the right line.
stumbled the way through.
So with hip flexion, it's easy for this one, especially when someone's squatting as well. It's a little bit more noticeable. But when we run out of space in the hip, what happens is someone will start to bend or flex their spine. So again, because we're assessing true hip flexion, we don't want any spinal movement. So the hands underneath the base of the spine is just going to be there for feedback. So for you, when you, or if you feel your hands touching to the base of your spine, then that's going to be the end of the assessment for you. So that's just to give you a gauge of what to expect and what your end range is. So we'll start with your right leg. What you're going to do is bend your knee for me. Perfect. And then bring yourself, we'll start you at 90 degrees. We're going to assume you can get to 90 degrees. We'll start a little bit less than 90.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to give you the weight of your leg. So you're going to hold it. Hold your leg up. I'm not going to hold your leg for you. Hold your leg up. And then nice and controlled, I want you to bring your thigh toward your head. And if you feel your hands pushing to the base of your spine, you'll stop there.
Okay.
Is that what you've got?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Perfect. So I'm going to take, so you can relax on me now. So we can see here that you've got roughly about 90 degrees actively being what he can control. So there's probably going to be a difference between active and passive. So active is what he can control. Passive is what his joint actually has available to him. And when it comes to squatting, which we'll explore in a little bit, we'll likely want to respect the active range and then use and utilize exercise to bridge the gap between active and passive over time. So right now, you've got 90 degrees active roughly.
Yeah.
Where did you feel that? Hip flexors or somewhere else?
Yeah, hip flexors mainly.
Yeah, perfect. So from there, I'm gonna see, so we had 90 active, and you can see we've actually probably got your hands touching your lower back, or is that fine?
No, that's fine.
Yeah, so we've actually got about 100, 110 passively, and I'm just gonna abduct you, and then see if we've got any more. So you've probably got about 110 to 115, maybe even 120.
Okay.
But essentially what we can say is we've got more than 90 degrees.
Yeah.
So what that means for Tola is that we have a window of opportunity to get from 90 degrees active to say 110 actively, and that should correlate with getting into a deeper squat without curving or rounding his back. Now moving down the chain, we're going to take a pit stop at the ankle and look at ankle dorsiflexion. Now I've started doing this as part of the couch assessment, but I used to use the knee to wall test, which we'll explore a little bit later on. But I had a little bit of a bias before with that, but my knowledge now tells me that the knee to wall test isn't complete dorsiflexion. It takes into account some other stuff that we potentially don't want to see or make note of when we're exploring dorsiflexion. So for this assessment, all I'm going to do is keep tib and fib locked in, and then I'm just going to bring foot, ankle up, out and away. I'm just going to assess plantar flexion and then dorsiflexion. And with this one, don't worry if you're not as confident, because dorsiflexion runs through a specific axis that we're not going to go into with this video. That's for later on, or if you subscribe to my course, we'll explore it there. But essentially, as long as you're doing the same assessment left to right, we're just looking at any differences. So there is no right or wrong with this part of the process or the process in general. We're not looking for right and wrongs, and your client probably won't know what you're doing anyway. So as long as you're confident with what you're doing and you're looking at the difference between left and right, you're on the right track. So there, all I'm doing is out and away, and I'm looking to compare what's going on right to left. We're gonna take a quick look at the middle joint now, which is the knee. Now this one is something that I often overlook, not on purpose, just because normally in my experience, the hip and the ankles are the bigger joints because they have more movement. But because we're breaking down Tola squat, we're gonna look at the hip, the ankle, and the knee. So this assessment is just looking at knee flexion. So all I'm gonna ask you to do, T, is to bend your knee as far as you can. Perfect. And you can feel your hamstring working there, can't you?
Yeah.
So the reason why we are doing this is no specific reason other than to see what his hamstring has available in terms of knee flexion. So let's, for argument's sake, say he only had that available and his hamstring started cramping up. That would give us an indication that we might need to work his hamstring in the shortened position, hip extended and knee flexed, to allow him to get more range, because we do need a certain degree of hip flexion when we are actually squatting. So this one I don't do with every single client, but because we're breaking down a squat, I think it's a nice way to assess, to allow us to get a clearer picture essentially. We've done the right side, so we're now going to move on to the left side. And it's important to remember at this point that we're not looking for good range or bad range. We're just looking for any differences or discrepancies between left and right. So we're going to repeat the same assessment process and look at if anything was different from the right side to now the left side, and that will give us something to potentially address later on down the line when we start programming. So just looking at internal rotation again. So we had 15 degrees on the right leg. And let me know, do you feel anything there? Like a pinch or anything, or is it okay?
No, it's all
Okay.
good.
So with this, I always ask my clients what their experience of the assessment is as well, because I might be seeing one thing and their experience might be something completely different, which is why I ask to back up or disconfirm my beliefs or what I'm seeing. So again, we've got around about 15 degrees on that side, so it's roughly the same. Did that feel similar to the other side or any different?
Yeah, it feels about the same.
About the same, cool. And then external rotation is about 45 to 50 again. How did that feel for you?
Yeah, that feels comfortable.
Okay. So about the same internal, external rotation, left to right.
That's rushing through the whole
You
thing.
lucky didn't catch that, because we run to you. We run to you. Okay, so nice and controlled for me, please. Will you just bring your foot to the ceiling?
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Did that feel easy? Can you remember? Give me your weight, your leg. Can you remember what the other side felt like actively?
It felt a bit more controlled. This one felt a bit more effort needed.
Did it?
Yeah.
What was the restriction for you? So why could you not go any further?
So this one was the hamstring as well.
So the back as well.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let me know when I need to stop.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I just want you to do that one more time for me, please.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Perfect. And just give me the weight of your leg. So the other side, because I can remember, got the memory of an elephant. So the other side, what I noted down was that his active range was probably 50 degrees, which is probably going to be more to there. I'll give him a little bit more leeway to there. And actively on this side, he's got closer to 70 to 80 degrees. So even though it might have felt different or more difficult on this side for you,
Yeah.
actively it seemed like you had a bit more range this side than you did that side, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong, I'm just going to note it down.
Okay.
So that feels a little bit different to what we felt on the other side in terms of dorsiflexion. Does that feel limited to you?
Yeah, it feels a bit more stiffer. I feel the right side flowed a bit better.
And just jog my memory. So when we first spoke, you mentioned having a little bit of a shift to one side.
Yeah. So the shift felt more towards the left side as I was coming up.
Perfect. So this is why we do the assessment process. Now, I'm not saying that the ankle is an issue or the issue, but I normally look at hips to begin with, then knee, or then ankle, because of the range that's in the hip and the ankle. And then if not the ankle, then the knee as well. So if there's a difference between left and right at the hip or the ankle, that might contribute to if someone has a shift to one side or an imbalance or something going on, normally it will be identifiable by something that's going on around here, and the hips look fairly similar. The ankle is a discrepancy, so we'll look to start there at the very least. So do you have any plantar dorsiflexion? Do you work your calves essentially, or the tib anterior?
Nah, rarely.
No. Perfect. So in terms of that, that's where I would potentially start looking to strengthen the muscles around this area, so calf, tib anterior, etc., because that might be a limiting factor. So we've done the couch assessment where we've looked at joint by joint in relative isolation what's going on. We're going to put all those joints together and assess Tola's squat to see if that makes any sense. So when we're assessing the squat, we want to make sure we get a complete 360 view. So what I'm going to ask Tola to do is to take it nice and slow so I can see what's going on. We're not going to move at 100 miles an hour, so don't move at 100 miles an hour. And then all we're going to do is do a squat from the front, 3 seconds down, pause at the bottom, 3 seconds up, one from the side, one from the back, and then one from the other side as well. And just a quick checkpoint for you if you're planning to do assessment like this with your clients, what I recommend is that you grab a tripod and you record the squats as well, because it's very difficult to see ankles, knees, hips, and spine, and neck, and head, and anything else that you need to see from a one-off movement. So tripod, camera, record, so you can go back, slow it down, pause, and look at what's going on in relative isolation or slow-mo. So what we need to do now is facing forward, just nice and controlled, just do one squat, front, side, back, other side. Okay, go. So I noticed something really interesting about the squat, and it links into our static assessment with the ankle, and we noticed there's a little bit of a discrepancy between left and right. So when we started squatting, hopefully now that he knows what I'm going to talk about, he doesn't change what he's going to do. But I noticed that his left foot was a little bit more abducted, so turned that way, and his right foot was a little bit more facing forward, so kind of like that. And there might be a reason as to why that is, but it definitely links in to what we saw on the couch assessment, which is why we do both. So we noticed a little bit of a difference between left and right with the foot. And you mentioned something about starting in a set position, so the position that your body wanted to start in, but you mentioned then trying to adjust it so both your feet were more like tram line straight.
Yeah.
Why is that, just out of curiosity?
So normally when I squat, naturally I notice that the right foot's a bit more inwards, left one's a bit more outwards. And when I'm looking in the mirror, I can noticeably see that my left one's a bit more out. So naturally I'll just try and bring it a bit more in line so it's the same on my right side. Perfect. Just for the fact that it looks a bit off. So I'll just try to...
Perfect, and that's really interesting because, again, we might be able to have an influence in programming as to bringing that a little bit more naturally aligned. But for now, what I would say is your body chooses that position for a reason. So if you do have a hip shift, which we'll look at when we slow things down, but your body wants to naturally be your left foot naturally more abducted because you're asking it to get X degrees of dorsiflexion, X degrees of knee flexion, and X degrees of hip flexion. For it to do what you're asking it, it needs to be in that position. So you'll probably find that you'll start like this, you'll naturally do that, and then the next set, your foot will naturally want to turn out as you go back up, and then you'll start and you'll go back to the top. So what I would recommend is, if you're going to keep squatting, which is fine, just if it looks a bit off, that's fine for now. Address the actual issue, the cause, and not the issue, which the cause, we don't know what that is yet. But don't worry about resetting and then and then resetting every single rep. So I'll naturally just let your body do what it wants to do.
Okay.
Cool. So we're just gonna look at and explore the differences now between squatting on the floor on a flat surface and then using a heel elevation. And that's just because you use a heel elevation, don't you, when you're squatting? Yeah. So the reason why he uses a heel elevation is to improve his range in his ankle, so improve the amount of dorsiflexion, whatever that might mean, and to also make it a little bit more quad focused. So we're gonna look at the relationship between the knee and the hip on a flat surface. Then we're gonna tweak this, give him a little bit of a heel elevation, and then look at the relationship between the hip and the knee when his heels are elevated. So if you wanna just give me this, and then squat down for me and just pause at the bottom. There we go. So we can see that the knee to the base of support is that thick, and we can see that the hip is almost double that. So the squat for T in this position is going to be relevantly hip dominated. So it's going to be more of a challenge to the hip than there is the knee. So if he wants a knee dominant squat, i.e. to work his quads a little bit more, we'll probably have to change things ever so slightly. So we're going to look at the difference between on a flat surface versus heels elevated to see what, if anything, has changed in the proportion between hip and knee and what is more biased. So if you can go down into the squat for me again, please. And then without my little daisy chain circuit, because I've left it over there, we're going to see that there is more of a challenge to the knee extensors, i.e. the quads, and there's a little bit less to the hip. So it's fairly 50-50, more of an even challenge. So the heel elevation has made this a little bit more of a quad challenge in this specific scenario. And then last but not least, because he was bent over a little bit, so there was more of hip flexion, so it was hinging over a little bit, we're gonna see if we can change that by adding a little bit of a counterbalance, i.e. increasing the amount of weight that is forward to allow him to sit a little bit more upright. And then again, I'm just gonna ask you to squat down for me, please. So you can see he's able to sit into the squat a little bit more upright, and that's just because we've added a little bit of a counterbalance at the front. Now I'm gonna keep talking, even though I don't have to, because we're gonna make him work a little bit. So when we see him start shaking, that's when we'll let him come back to the top. Okay, perfect. But all jokes aside, we can see that when his heels are elevated, for whatever reason, it could be a couple of reasons that I'm thinking of: increasing the knee to floor, so the length of basically the tibia, or increasing the amount of dorsiflexion he has. It's not actually increasing, but that's a topic for another day. Essentially, the net result is it's more of a quad challenge, which is what he wants for that specific movement. So we're now going to attempt to get this up there without me pulling my back. So we're going to go through a working set and put the whole thing together, because he didn't come to me to do a bodyweight squat or a heel elevated goblet squat. He came to do a safety bar squat, so we're going to put him through a working set if we can actually get it up there. There we go. The camera's rolling, of course it has to be good. You got it?
Yep.
Got it?
Yeah, all good.
Fucking made it. My gosh. Okay, cool. So I want you to do tempo, 4 seconds down, pause for 1 second, and 3 to 4 seconds up.
Okay.
Okay. And then drive up from there. How's that feeling? Okay?
Yeah, that feels good.
For your quads,
Yeah. And again?
aim for 10 to 12. Pause. Now drive up. Good. Straight down. At the top, we're not gonna lock out.
Okay.
Perfect, there. So the aim of this is, because the load's a little bit lighter, you carry on. Because the load's a little bit lighter, we're manipulating tempo, we're manipulating keeping the muscle active all the way through to get an appropriate stimulus to fatigue him enough to make it feel like a working set. Because for me, getting up there is heavy, but for him, it's actually baby weights. I hope.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel the quads burn a bit.
Well, you can still talk, so that means we've got a lot to go. Good. Pause at the bottom, pause. There you go. 2 to 3 more and I'll take it. Pause there. Now drive up. Good, 2. You can't feel it in your lower back, can you? Too much? Just quads?
Just quads.
There you go.
On fire.
Good, last one. For your last one. You look, we haven't got a safety rack. Stand up, stand up. Okay, and I've got it. Yep, nice and controlled. Yeah, I've got it, I've got it. Good, I've got it, I've got it.
Okay.
Good. Perfect.
Oh, perfect. Oh, my quads.
As you say, not put on 20 or 25. That's it. Tola's assessment wrapped up, and today was an interesting one because it kind of broke some of the barriers and biases that I normally have. So when I do an assessment, I'll start at the hip, then go to the ankle, then lastly finish off at the knee. And the majority of times I notice any discrepancies with the hip, but in Tola's case, it was actually the ankle that was the biggest drop to potentially look to explore. And for me, the heel elevation is one way of getting around what we noticed today, but it's not the fix. The fix, if possible, would be to strengthen certain tissues so we potentially don't need the heel elevation to begin with. So what I would do if I was going to change anything would be to actually keep him with the heel elevation. If possible, I would take the squat out for maybe 1 or 2 weeks, maybe even a little bit longer, strengthen the calf, so plantar and dorsiflexion in relative isolation, and then chuck the squat back in to see what's changed with a reassessment a little bit later on. So essentially today, you've had a look into my assessment process, and hopefully you've got some practical takeaways that you can start to assess yourself with your clients. And remember, the main thing is your clients won't know if you're right or wrong, so just assess, but assess confidently. And don't forget, before I get up, don't forget to subscribe, like, and if you do want me to cover any interesting topics that come to your mind, drop me a comment and I can explore some stuff in the future, because I always want to give you guys some value and benefit while you're here. But first of all, that starts with the subscription. Thank you in advance.